The Metropolitan Council meeting. We have had a swearing in for both new and returning council members, so let me be the first to congratulate you on this really important role here for the region. Before we start, I'm Charlie Zelli. This is the Metropolitan Council meeting, March 8th, 2023. This is publicly streamed, so if you'd like to revisit what you've said, you can always go back, but it's recorded.
Maybe not.
But those who have been in public service know that this is an open and transparent meeting and an opportunity for us to come together. We've had a wonderful day just visiting with family and friends and getting pictures and being sworn in. I have to say, it is a thrill to see new faces, to see the familiar faces which are new to the council and familiar faces which have been with me for 3 years, but at the council for some 4 years, and some who are serving their 6th term with the 3rd governor. We'll get into that later. We have a tremendous cross-section of talent, representation, and it's a thrill. And I have to say, it's a thrill to be in public service in any role, but Metropolitan Council does a very distinctive, kind of capacity for Minnesota and this region. And it's really great to be there with you in this. I could go on and a little pet talk. We will find it invigorating and rewarding, I hope. It is not for the faint of heart. There are some things which are difficult. There's issues that are difficult. And sometimes we disappoint some of the 180 cities that we work with. Sometimes we absolutely provide such great news that we're revered. And some of that is deserved sometimes, and sometimes it's not, but we'll get whatever it is that comes our way. But I know everybody comes to this table with deep life and professional experience, which adds a lot to what we do. So, and I just thought before we totally get started, if we could just take a moment for each person to introduce themselves, and that means for those that are returning, we're going to start with Jody here, but we go around the table. For those who are returning, you just might reflect just briefly on the first time, your first term, and maybe kind of where you focused your efforts quickly and what's meaningful. And then for those that are here as new council members, you might just give us a few words about what brought you to the Met Council and maybe an area that you really would like to focus in on. And it sounds a lot like the interview, believing it's not. This is it's a done deal. But just really just 60 seconds. So, Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Judy Johnson. I represent District 1 on the Metropolitan Council. I was appointed 4 years ago by Governor Walz. It's 11 cities in that part of the region. The reason that I really wanted to be part of the Met Council, I actually gave up my seat on the Plymouth City Council, was so that I could work on housing, affordable housing. I could work on transportation across the region. I had been a lobbyist while I worked at the Twin West Chamber of Commerce and worked a lot on transportation. And I also wanted to make sure that we worked hard on equity across the region. I thought that would be very important. I will say, as a mayor and council member, I had my struggles with the Met Council, and I think that I can bring a point of view and have brought a point of view for my mayors and my cities across the northwest part of the region to establish trust and transparency in the work that they're doing with us. I think that's a big deal. And so I enjoy the work, and I echo everything that you said, Mr. Chair. It's going to be a ride. It's going to be good.
Wonderful. My name is Reva Chambliss, representing District 2. And I came to the Metropolitan Council because I have a passion for community development, equity, and having a strong public transportation systems. I sit on multiple committees, the Transportation Committee, of which I'm Vice Chair, and the Community Development Committee. I chaired the Police Review Task Force that led to our Safety Action Plan. And what else have I done? But I'm honored to be a part of the council and to continue another 4 years with this council, which is a great council. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to say good afternoon. My focus is going to be transportation and environment. I'm Dr. Tyrone Carter. I'm a science teacher, small business owner, CEO of America's Fun Science. I have lived in Minnetonka, part of District 3, my district, for 19 years. And on this day, International Women's Day, I would like to say I am the son of Louise Stiff Carter McKenzie of Sussex County, Virginia. I am the husband of Carolyn Carter, without whom I would be nothing. I wanted to be a member of the Met Council because we all have to pay a price for our freedom. If I thought back to the Korean War Memorial, and etched into that is the saying, freedom isn't free. This saying came back during 9/11, which is also my birthday. And so I wrote a short poem just to address that. Freedom isn't free for you or for me. It is why we can't turn our backs on any injustice we might see. Yes, freedom isn't free, but please don't shy away from paying the price, or we'll all slip on the cold ice of tyranny.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Carter. That was really inspiring. I'm Anjali Cameron. I'm the new representative for District 5. I also want to echo a very happy International Women's Day, and today is also the Day of Holi for those who celebrate that, and so I wish everyone who celebrates a very happy Holi today. I bring a lot of experience around community-based research and community engagement, working across Minnesota to build collaborative and cooperative communities. I want to bring that collaboration spirit to the Met Council, and I hope to do that with the current appointees that have just been sworn in. I am a published author in research, and I really believe in bringing communities, using evidence, and bringing communities into the fold and really empowering them to be able to use data and use evidence to their advantage. And so I've brought that throughout my work with community-based research, and I hope to bring that kind of informed evidence to the council as well. My passion and the impetus for me applying for this seat really had to do with improving the well-being of all Minnesotans, particularly in our region, and ensuring that the demographic shifts that are happening now and over the next few decades are going to be reflective in the work that the Met Council takes up, and that economic prosperity is inclusive of everyone within our region. So I'm really looking forward to working with my colleagues on that and representing the constituency of my district. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm John Pacheco. I represent District 6. This is almost like my third tour of duties here. I was here in 92 or 91, something like that, 90. So 30 years ago, I was a perpetual appointment. And at that point, we didn't have transit. We had the sewer, wastewater, and we had MUSA lines and who can get what and the development. And so it was a different animal back then. I fulfilled a seat that was vacant last year. So I've been here a year, and since last March. So now it seems like it's my third tour. So new faces, enjoying it. I'm here because I really believe in public service. I'm also president of the Latino Chamber of Commerce, and I preach to my colleagues and to my friends is you got to sit on one public body. I don't care what it is, what you do, but at least you got to sit on one body. And I believe in Minnesota, there's a body for everybody. I don't know if you're a hairdresser or a plumber or you're a lawyer or whatever, there's a body for you to sit. So I encourage people, when I saw this seat opened up, it fit a lot of what I was doing, working in economic development with the Latino Chamber, but also I'm interested in transportation, which now I'm on the Transportation Committee. I co-chair the Equity Committee, and I'm also on the Management Committee. And so it's a lot of work, but it is fulfilling. You're learning something every day. If you don't, you're not listening, because there's just a really big draw here for what we're doing. Good and bad some days, but actually overall, the people you work with are passionate about it. Even if they don't like what you're doing, they're very passionate about what they want to see, what they want to see happen. They don't make noise just for the sake of it, from what my experience has been. So I'm looking forward to this next 4 years here, and I think we've got a great team as you look at the backgrounds of everybody around the table. And so I think we can accomplish a lot, and I appreciate the appointment, to be honest with you.
Cool. Bonjour, Niniganaduk. Hello, my relatives. I'm Robert Lilligren. I am a citizen of the White Earth Ojibwe Nation. And as such, I'm the first tribal citizen to ever serve on this body, and I'm honored and proud of that. And I have been, this is my second term, but I've been in sort of regional government for quite a while. I served on the Minneapolis City Council for 12 years and on the Transportation Advisory Board, which if you're not familiar with that yet, you will be soon, but another regional governance. I feel in my heart of hearts, I'm a true regionalist. I represent South Central Minneapolis, town to the river, North Loop, all of North Minneapolis and Robbinsdale. I also chair the Community Development Committee, and a big focus of our first term as directed by Governor Walz was equity. And man, we have grappled with how to realize equity within what's in our authority and maybe what's even beyond our authority here within the region. I also served on the policing work group that Councilmember Chambliss chaired. I also served on the housing policy work group, which sunsetted at the end of last year, but I hope we reconstitute it again this term, and on the transit policy work group. This upcoming term, I can tell through our Community Development Committee, and those of you who serve on it, we're going to have some very robust conversation. And with some of my colleagues on the committee, we've just been commenting recently how it feels like we're really governing now and not just sort of going through sort of motions. And there's issues of equity and housing investment. That's going to be a big deal. And when I was being interviewed, I was asked to identify my number one priority, and that was housing in our region. And we're just constricted in our growth until we can figure out how to house everybody within the region. So I look forward. I welcome new council members. This is going to be good. I'm really impressed. Oh, and on this International Women's Day, just to note that we have a majority of women on this council, and I don't know how often that happens, or if it's ever happened before. So no shade at my male colleagues here, but I'm very comfortable with the fact that we have a majority of women on this council this term. So, yeah, welcome everyone. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Yasin Osman. I'm a new member. I'm representing District 8. I am a small business owner, and also I'm a community organizer. So the issues that bring me to the council is community development and housing and transportation. So I also used to be a senior advisor to the Office of the Prime Minister in Somalia. So this is not the first time in public service. So that's the issues that I would like to focus on. Thank you and welcome everybody.
Diego Morales, District 9. I am a union carpenter by trade. The main reason I wanted to be part of the Met Council was I want to be able to set a future for my kids. I got 2 little kids at home, 3 and 2. So, like I said in my interview, I figured by this time and age we'd have flying cars like you see in the Jetsons, but we're far from it. But my main focus is going to be transportation and environment, because I want to set the ground for my kids' future and have them enjoy the community that we live in just like I do. I originally moved out here from the West Coast about 12 years ago. I've loved it ever since. I've set roots here. I got married, had kids, and I just want to be able to provide the same future for my kids that I've had here and the same opportunities that I've had since I've moved for my kids and everybody else here moving forward.
Good afternoon, everybody. Peter Lindstrom, second term. I'm from one of the smaller cities in the metro region, the city of Falcon Heights, where I had the pleasure of serving 20 years as an elected official. And you will find almost without exception on all of the items that we work on that there's a local government connection. And I have a lot of folks around the table that have had some local government experience. I chair the Environment Committee. For all the Environment Committee members, welcome. That's where all the cool kids are. And I also had the pleasure of chairing the Climate Action Work Group. So we have a lot of work on both of those scores. So welcome, everybody.
Good afternoon. I'm Sue Bento. I represent District 11 in the East Metro area. It overlaps with a portion of, a small portion of Washington County, a small portion of Anoka County, and then a chunk of eastern Ramsey County, 12 cities and 2 townships. I have a background in education. I taught in Wilmer, Minnesota, home of the Lindstrom family. Peter's younger sister is a student. She was wonderful. And no matter what she says about herself, she was wonderful. She has memories of 3rd grade that I don't have of her 3rd grade experience. Anyway, I have been, during the last 4 years, serving on the Community Development Committee, the Environment Committee, the Audit Committee, and for the last year, I've been the council rep designee for the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission. It's an ex officio position. I'm leaving the Environment Committee, regrettably, to serve on the Transportation Committee. And for those of you that are going to get to continue to get to serve on the Environment Committee, you're going to love it. I went on that committee 4 years ago not knowing what I was getting on, and when I realized it was dealing with waste treatment, it was kind of like, ooh, this is going to be interesting, and it's been fascinating. And I'm probably going to show up for meetings from time to time simply because the conversations are so important, and they cross so many areas of the goals that we have in terms of equity, environmental quality, building communities, et cetera. I've served on the transit safety, transit policy, and climate change work groups. I'm the ex officio designee to the Environmental Quality Board, a position that was created for the Met Council by a very wise Commissioner of Transportation a number of years ago. His name was Charlie Zelli. You've probably never heard of him. Anyway, and I also
Things come around.
I also am the council rep on the Governor's Age-Friendly Council, dealing with those of us who are dealing with really old time clocks that are ticking fast. You'll enjoy this group. It's really a lot of fun. Not only will it be great for building professional relationships, but also personal.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Gail Cedarberg. I represent District 12 from Forest Lake down to Cottage Grove. I know when the Met Council was formed, it was all country. Things have changed quite a bit in District 12. My background is as an environmental scientist and engineer working on projects from high-level nuclear waste disposal to geothermal energy to groundwater flow, wastewater treatment, and have dedicated my professional career to environmental science and engineering. And really, I believe that development and sustainable development can be done while you're still working to protect the environment, and those things can be done together. And in the last 10 years, I just retired a year ago, I've worked with development along the Green Line in remediating contaminated sites and turning them into workforce housing. I've worked with the Metro and Seneca wastewater treatment plants doing air testing and compliance, as well as numerous other environmental things. My passion is water, and I think we have a lot of challenges in thinking about how we're going to manage water in the metro and in the state. And somebody asked me, if you could live any place, where would it be? And for me, it'd be on a boat in the middle of a lake. Maybe people could visit me, maybe not. But I really am passionate and believe that everybody, and that kind of brings in the equity piece, needs to be able to really enjoy what Minnesota has to offer and what the metro has to offer, no matter who you are, where you live, what you believe in. And to do that, we need, sustainable development, sustainable water management. And so I'm on the Environmental Committee, which is where I wanted to be, and other committees. So everybody's been so warm and welcoming today, so I'm looking forward to digging in. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Charlie. I represent District 13. I applied 4 years ago because I grew up in a very poor town in California called Fresno, where it didn't have a MPO like us. And so in that part of California, they don't have strong regional governments. And so I saw the disinvestment of an area like that. And so for me, it was an opportunity to lift up the region together and to be on a body that does that important work. And I'm the chair of the audit committee. And I'd say two of my favorite things I've been able to be a part of is in 2019 and 2021, I was able to be on the IMPOS, part of the IMPOS committees to give out about $500,000 for our equity pilot program for equity projects. And then recently, we are also through the CDC give out $2 million for the LHIA homeownership pilot as well. And I want to note two fun facts. Sue and I are the only two council members whose districts straddle 3 counties. And we have a little college caucus here. So Anjali and Gail and Tony and I all went to Carleton College in Northfield, Minnesota. And sadly, Rice County is not in my council, but I just want to note that we'll probably take a picture later.
Yeah, get a picture, send it in.
Thank you. Tony Carter. I have recently retired from the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners, where I served for 18 years. I have a lot of opportunity over those years to interact with work being done by the Metropolitan Council. In particular, I served on the Central Corridor Management Committee some many years ago when we were about to construct our first light rail line, which is the Green Line today, of course. And I have a lot of memories from that time. If anybody wants to know about that, please let's talk. Just really thrilled with what I've seen at the council and the development of frameworks and strategies here that help to advance our community. On the Ramsey County Board, when I first joined that board, after my service as a school board member in the city of St. Paul, I focused on transportation with that first transit line coming in, community development, including housing, and human services with a focus on safety and justice for young people in particular. And those have continued to be highlights of my service on the Ramsey County Board. Now, having retired from that board, but not from engaging with community, particularly with a focus on community genuine ownership together with us, as well as on equity, I am so thrilled for the work that I see here at the council. Looking forward to working with you on the Transportation Committee and on the Community Development Committee. And getting to know you all, I have a lot to learn about the work of the council. Bring a lot of opinions, but I'm so looking forward to hearing the real deal from you all as we move forward together. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Tenzin Dolker. I represent District 15, and I'm looking forward to, in this role, getting to know the communities in District 15. And so one of the several reasons why I applied to be on the Met Council, and I'm so glad to be here, is many of the issues that I worked on over the years as a professional around transportation, housing, working at homeless shelters, domestic violence shelter, looking at planning, like those are the issues that Metropolitan Council has an impact on. And I truly believe in people feeling like their lived experiences, their voices are being included in the decision-making process. And so I'm looking forward to being on the transportation and community development committees. And I'm looking forward to how council thinks about climate as it looks towards 2050 planning.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Wolf, and I have been here for 14 years. Before that, I was on the Lakeville City Council for 6 years, and before that, I was on the Planning Commission for 7 years. So I've been working on planning and community things and regional development for a very long time. I am from here, and my husband is from Thailand, and when we first got married, we lived in Germany for 3 years. But when we wanted to find a place that we were going to stay and raise our family, it was here. With this Minnesota is a great place to raise a family. And so I've lived in Lakeville now for more than 30 years. And I've been on the Environment Committee and Community Development the entire time. I thought when I came here that I wanted to be on transportation, but I didn't end up there. And the wastewater system actually became my by far my favorite part of what we do at the council. It's so well-run and so effective. Looking forward to working with all of you. Oh, my district, I have the southern 3/4 or so of Dakota County and the southeastern part of Scott County, and that's 30 communities, both cities and townships, ranging from Lakeville, which has more than 65,000 people, down to New Trier, which has 89 people. So it's a very diverse district. And I'm happy to give you guys a tour if you ever want to come see it.
Well, thank you so much. Tony?
I failed to mention that I represent District 14, which is St. Paul west of 35E.
Right. Important. We knew you were in the general area of
Oh, yeah.
Ramsey, but that's helpful. It's great to hear everybody's stories. We're so fortunate that everybody could be here, and I like that we've acknowledged it's a number of different celebrations today, the International Women's Day. We're missing Deb Barber, who chairs our Transportation Committee. She couldn't be with us tonight, so we will find a way to swear her in, but she is returning, which gives us the majority women on the council. I don't know if that's the first, but I'm okay with that too, Robert. I didn't tell about my background, and I'm going to save it, but I think everybody knows I've had a career in transportation, both in the private sector and the public sector. But I think when you come to the council, you come in as a transportation wonk and you leave as a water, wastewater appreciator. And I'm describing to my family just a couple of days ago when she was talking about water in the metro area, which is like, well, Met Council, this is a prime issue. This is something we're engaged with. And I said, well, here we are in Minneapolis, we're drinking water out of the Mississippi. It's been treated, and it eventually goes back to the Mississippi, but it goes back in better condition than when it went in. And of course, there's a look of shock from Julie. I don't describe how that all works, but it's an amazing system. It's just an example. I want to also acknowledge that even though we come from such diverse backgrounds, geographically in all different ways of thinking about it, we all share a love of Minnesota. I mean, share this love for this region, whether we just arrived or whether we've been here for generations, and that's a kind of a great thing, and we have that values together. And I think we all share, frankly, Governor Walz's values. And I'll have to kind of say this one Minnesota vision is important for the governor. It's important to us. The idea that this is a region that you would want to raise your children in, I think that kind of is a great way to sum up what I know is important to this administration. And with the goals and the strategic planning that we're actually going to do really fast to kind of align our Met Council, and it won't be hard work because I think it's something we all believe in, but align that with this administration because we are an independent agency, but we're very much part of this second term. So we'll look forward to that. So we actually do business on Wednesdays, and the council meetings are twice a month. And occasionally we do business during a committee of the whole meeting, but we try to do them here at a formal council meeting. So we will jump in, and often we see the agenda. If you see something on the agenda that you think you have some question about, you'd like to know more about, you think we shouldn't even have it on the agenda, it's open season, this is the time to make a comment. Rarely, there might be something on the consent agenda that you would like to actually discuss. We can pull it out of the consent agenda. So those familiar with government, this is very similar. We kind of use Robert's Rules of Order, but that's why we generally have smart people like Dave Tyson who says, you're off track, Chair. You ought to do it this way. So that happens, but not often. So if there's no disagreement with the agenda, we move to the approval of the council minutes that were sent out in advance on February 8th. There's a few of us who were there at that meeting, so not everybody. But I would take a motion and a second to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson and Milligan. And any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The minutes have been approved. Then we have an opportunity for public invitation. So this is an opportunity for those who would like to address the council on an issue that is not on the agenda. And that's actually part of our bylaws. Occasionally comes up, somebody would like to talk about something we're about to debate, and we actually don't provide for that. There are opportunities for public comment at the committee level, and these 3-minute statements are ones that we've opened up. It was always challenging when we were during a pandemic emergency. We were virtual. We're now in person for these meetings, and by open meeting law, we need to be in person. So, and generally people pre-register, so I don't think, this is where I look at you, Michelle.
Thank you, Chair Zelli. I did have a sign-in sheet out on the table. Last time I checked, there was nobody had signed in, but it has been a few minutes, so if anybody would like to speak.
All right, unless anybody's signed, all right, hearing none, we will jump into our business items. There's a joint report, budget amendment, and for that, I will turn to Councilmember Johnson, who
Thank you,
chairs
Mr.
our
Chair.
management committee, so often does these business items.
Thank you. I forgot to mention that during my introduction. Yes, I chair the management committee. So for all of those of you who are on management, welcome aboard. And it is also a bunch of cool kids. So looking forward to working with all of you. You'll see that this is item 2023-35JT. For the new folks here, that means it's a joint business item, meaning that it's gone through 2 or more committees before coming here today. So it did go before the Community Development Committee, the Transportation Committee. It would have gone to management, but we've had a few changes in our schedules, so it's showing up tonight, and I'll be offering the explanation and then a motion on this item. The 2023 Carry Forward budget amendment makes changes to the operating budget in regional administration, transportation, community development, and changes to the capital budget in transportation. The proposed amendment was reviewed and approved by Community Development on February 6th and the Transportation Committee on February 13th. In regional administration, the amendment carries forward 11 projects approved by the council in 2021 and 2022, adds 2 FTEs to the information services budget, and makes small increases to the OEEO and communications budget in 2023. In community development, the amendment carries forward 2 projects approved in 2022 and increases the use of reserve funds as $250,000 is transferred to the HRA, Housing and Redevelopment Authority capital budget. In MTS, Metropolitan Transportation Services, the amendment adds 2 FTEs to the Metro Mobility budget. It also recognizes an additional $1.2 million in federal revenue and moves a corresponding amount of MVEST funds to the capital budget, motor vehicle sales tax. We have a lot of acronyms in this, so I'm trying to slow it down. Most of you probably know those anyway. In Metro Transit, the amendment recognizes an additional $10 million in federal revenue in bus operations and transfers a corresponding amount of MVEST funds to the capital budget. Turning to the capital budget, the additional $250,000 is incorporated into the HRA capital program. In MTS, 26 projects are closed and 61 projects are amended. In Metro Transit, 4 projects are closed and 24 projects are amended. The changes are detailed in the tables that we've all received as part of our information prior to tonight's council meeting in tables 9 and 11. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the 2023 Unified Budget as amended and in accordance with the attached tables as part of our information for tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Vento. Because this is a budget item, we would have a roll call, but first, is there any questions, discussion on the budget carry forward? All righty. Michelle, you may call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Zelli. Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Chambliss?
Aye.
Councilmember Carter?
Aye.
I'm going to rephrase it. Councilmember Tyrone Carter?
Aye.
Councilmember Barber? Councilmember Cameron?
Aye.
Councilmember Pacheco?
Aye.
Councilmember Lilligren?
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales?
Aye.
Councilmember Lindstrom?
Aye.
Councilmember Vento?
Aye.
Councilmember Cedarburg?
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Tony Carter,
Just one eye this time.
and Councilmember Tokar,
Aye.
and Councilmember Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Zelling.
We cannot forget Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, that motion carried. Thank you all. On to the consent agenda. Is there a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Second, thank you. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Thank you, that consent agenda is approved. There are no reports from the Community Development Committee nor the Environment and Management Committee. There is the Transportation Committee, and I believe Councilmember Chambliss, are you proposing that?
Yes, Mr. Chair and council members, business item number 2023-49 is for the reciprocal easement and operating agreement and transit easement modification for the Beltline Boulevard Station Park and Ride for Metro Green Line Extension Project. In summary, Metro Green Line Extension Project scope includes a 268-stall park and ride at the Beltline Boulevard Station. The Council and City of St. Louis Park agreed to include the 268 parking stalls within a larger development in lieu of a surface lot. This requires entering into a reciprocal easement and operating agreement with the City of St. Louis Park Economic Development Authority and the developer Beltline Mixed Use LLC and modifying the transit easement limits. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I propose and move that the Met Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute a reciprocal easement and operating agreement with Beltline Mixed Use LLC, their successors and assigns, and the St. Louis Park Economic Development Authority, and modify the associated transit easement for the Beltline Boulevard Station Park and Ride.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Lilligren. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? That motion carried. We're on to other business, 2023-30, the Audit Committee appointments. And it's my honor to appoint some new members and existing members to be ratified by the council. A 2-year term for District 14, Quinn Galeswick, District 14, Amy Jorgensen, and for a 4-year term, in order to maintain the staggered nature of the audit committee, District 6, Andra Rothler, and District 12, Grace George. Is there a motion and a second to approve the appointments to the audit committee?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Lee.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. Any discussion? Yes, Councilmember Lee.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I want to thank Councilmember Sue Vento for being on the selection committee, as well as the hard work of the staff persons, audit staff, Matt Latour and his assistant, Tammy Rain. They did a lot of hard work with me to interview and select these wonderful folks. And so I'm really, as chair of the audit committee, I'm really proud that we're selecting great folks to be committee members on this important body.
And thank you, Councilmember Lee, and thank you for your chairmanship. And just as clarification, we have 4 outside members and 4 council members that serve on the audit committee, and we really are fortunate that we have the quality of that kind of talent on that committee. Any other comments, Councilmember Johnson?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just briefly, I served as the audit chair prior to moving to the management chair, so I commend Councilmember Lee in his role chairing that, and I served with these 4 people, and they're outstanding. They really do contribute a great amount of experience, intel, and I think have really helped our audit team, led by Matt Latour, to do some really innovative things, and they dig and ask questions. So hats off to the audit committee, and really happy to support this appointment.
Great, thank you. Comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That item is approved. On to our agency safety plans. And I have to say, this is something that we've discussed in prior meetings, and it's really a thrill to see it come on our agenda and before us. Councilmember Chambliss, are you proposing this?
I am.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and council members, business item number 2023-61 is to adopt the bus and rail agency safety plans, revision 5 as required by federal law. In summary, this business item is to adopt revision 5. On February 15th, 2023, the Met Council adopted revision 4 of the plans. The Metro Transit Joint Labor Management Safety Committee began work on the latest revision 5 shortly thereafter. It incorporates changes collaboratively developed by the labor and management co-chairs and reviewed by all committee members. The changes to revision 5 include updated language to reflect the current Metro Transit organizational structure, responsibilities of safety department staff, and policy references. Also, new language pertaining to transit worker assaults, new language regarding the evaluation of cleaning standards, new language regarding de-escalation training for frontline workers who are not operators, and changes to facility inspection schedules. On March 3rd, 2023, the Joint Labor Management Safety Committee voted to approve both the bus and light rail plans. The vote on both plans was 10 votes in favor of approval, 0 votes against, meaning that all management members and all labor members voted to approve this revision 5 version of the plans that are now before the council. Federal law requires that the governing board also approve the agency safety plans following the safety committee's approval, which is why the council is being asked to approve them. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council adopt revision 5 of the Bus Transportation Agency Safety Plan and the Light Rail Transportation Agency Safety Plan for Metro Transit as required by 49 CFR Part 673.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, thank you, Councilmember Carter. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Councilmember Carter.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I realize this is a revision and number 5, and that the safety plans have been adopted in the past. And I would just ask whether there is, in addition to the reviews that have mentioned, any community review and interaction with the plan, and what that might be.
Mr. Chair, if you could ask staff to provide an update.
And that would be, if I might,
Yeah.
that would not be absolutely necessary at this time. You know, again, I realize the plan has moved forward and this is a revision, and I'm asking about the interaction with the plan itself, and whether there has been opportunity for that in the development of the plan, if there is any opportunity and interaction in the process of its implementation.
Yeah, it's really a great question, and we should give you a full orientation, but briefly,
Thank you.
The IIJA legislation requires by statute, federal statute, the FTA to administer a safety planning program where in the year 2023, the year we're in, that there would be a safety plan advanced by a joint labor and management committee. And this plan, although saying revision 5, is the first plan that has been advanced by a joint committee of labor and management. It is a revision, but none have actually come to this point of unanimous safety committee approval. So to the extent there's additional safety plans and public input, there are mechanisms for that, but this specific plan is one that is associated with that kind of federally sanctioned committee. I'm abbreviating it again. There's long, and I will say this, and maybe Councilmember Johnson might be saying the same thing. We've come to a great point of trust, and hats off to the ATU and the management. And Andrew Brody, who's our safety manager, was halfway up here to talk, just to describe this. But I'll save your footsteps, Andrew. You did a great job managing this process.
Yeah.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yes, just briefly, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is very prescriptive from FTA, federal level, and again, it's a joint management ATU member committee. We do have safety plans at the Met Council that have had a lot of community input, and it's going to be great to have the new members jumping into that because it's a living document, and we get quarterly updates on that, and we can get updates, you know, when you meet with directors of the departments to just better understand it. So hearing you about the community engagement, it's very huge at the Met Council, but this first step was really big for us because we needed to get this forward or we would not be getting the federal funding that we need for many of our transit lines and going forward. So I just, again, want to thank Andrew and the team, and I want to thank ATU for coming to the table. This last month has been very pivotal in this work, and I'm really glad to see it moving forward.
I know.
Councilmember Carter.
I really appreciate the delineation between what is required federally and what is being done here at the Metropolitan Council. And again, would echo the kudos to the staff effort that has happened into ATU, and still look very, very forward to understanding the work that's been done here at the metropolitan area. And I know that will come likely by way of update to the entire team here. I look so forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and stay tuned for more safety updates. This is a subject that's very important to us. It is our #1 Metro Transit issue. It is a subject before the legislature, so we're in multiple ways engaged in ways to both maintain transit as a safe but also a welcoming environment. So stay tuned.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, I just want to thank Councilmember Barber, who chairs transportation too. She's not here tonight, but she does a lot of heavy lifting in transportation to make sure things are moving forward and is very transparent and works with TAB. And she can't be here tonight, but I just wanted to make sure on the record that we hold her up in all of her work as well.
Any other comments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great, thank you so much. And likewise, Councilmember Barber, who may very well be listening in, deserves that congratulations. And also, I might also add, just let us know that the second term of the Dayton administration also had a majority of women on this council.
Oh, very
Just
good.
Just to know.
I like it.
Watching at home will know. On to 2023-63, the Southwest Light Rail Builders Risk Property Insurance Extension. And we welcome to the table Phil Wasjasper, our Deputy
Enterprise Risk Officer.
Enterprise Risk, I know. Your title, Phil, keeps changing.
It's changed,
If it
yes.
relates to risk or insurance,
That's
you're the man. I think that's how we introduce you. Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, council members. As mentioned, this business item is seeking authorization to extend the existing builder's risk property insurance policy related to the Green Line Extension Project in an amount not to exceed $3.8 million. This policy was procured back in 2018. It's a contractually required policy, and it provides coverage for damage to property that's going to be a part of the construction project. The premium for the policy is based on the value and the timeline of the project. And since those two have changed, we need to go back to this policy and extend it and make sure that it's reflecting the accurate values. As segments of the line get turned over to the Met Council and accepted, then those segments will go from the builder's risk policy to the council's existing permanent property policy. So with that, Mr. Chair, again, the business item is seeking an extension of the builder's risk policy related to the Green Line project in an amount not to exceed $3.8 million, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. First, is there a motion and a second to approve that action?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for Phil? Councilmember Anjali.
Yeah, thank you so much, Phil. I was just wondering if the policy has been utilized thus far in the expansion, what that has looked like so far.
Mr. Chair, council members, there have been no claims made against the policy, but again, it's something that's contractually required. It's there in case there's some damage to the property, whether it be flood, tornado, anything that may cause damage to it, so we don't have any other issues with the project timeline.
All right, seeing no other hands, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, that motion carried. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
We're on to 2023-65 committee assignments. I really appreciate everyone for both serving on 2 committees. These are the main committees. There'll be more opportunities, more advisory committees, more task forces, more opportunities for engagement. But these core committees are what really comes to the main work for the Met Council. So I also, it's my prerogative as chair to recommend these assignments. I especially want to thank our chairs, Lilligren, Lindstrom, Johnson, and Barber for maintaining the continuity, but we have a number of new members, and we've had a little bit of shifting, the idea to get expertise in the right place. They are not forever. If in the course of the year, please let me know if, like, oh my God, I can't go to another wastewater presentation. You're not going to say that, I know, but you know, just contact me. Also, particularly want to thank Councilmember Chambliss, who has agreed to be the vice chair of the council, which is an important role, both for leadership and on the rare occasion that I am sick, or more often on a beach. We can fill each other's when we're missing a meeting. So I would entertain a motion to ratify those committee assignments.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Discussion.
Mr. Chair, yeah, not a question, just a comment. I just want to really commend you and thank Councilmember Chambliss for stepping up to be vice chair. And I was kind of combing through all of the communications we've had as we prepared to start this with this new council, wondering who that would be. And I kept thinking it should be Reva. It should be Reva. So I should have communicated that.
You did. I heard you.
Yeah, right. To telepathically communicated that. But I just think it's an excellent choice. And Councilmember Chambliss takes on so much leadership within the council. So I'm glad. I really want to thank her and commend you for the choice of Councilmember Chambliss as our vice chair.
Well, and thank you, Robert. And also, on that note, really appreciate Councilmember Chambliss, but also, frankly, all of us. It is a village and it is a teamwork, and we, along with a wonderful staff, support the great work that we're doing. So there's many opportunities for that level of engagement. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? Councilmember Chambliss, you don't have a comment, do you? Yes, you do.
Yes, I just want to say that it's been an honor and a pleasure to serve the council, to serve on its committees, to work with other council members and staff and the chair, as well as community members. And it's really an honor and a humbling experience, and I appreciate the confidence of the council to be in this appointment as vice chair. Thank you.
Having said that, all righty. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. That motion and those committee assignments and officership is approved. So now we have one information item, and this is one that has been deferred a couple of meetings, maybe more than a few. And we thought after the first 4 years of term, we should take stock of what we accomplished. This is not an exhaustive presentation, but it is one that kind of hits some highlights. And in really thinking when this should be presented to us, I can think of no better day than today, because, you know, there's some of us who are like, wow, we did that, we did more than we thought. And then there's some of us who are new who will think, there's more to be done in this area. So I think it's both a little inspiring and also realize that some of the important work we're doing. And so there's no better person to present that than George Gonzalez, who, as Deputy Regional Administrator, is also tasked with helping organize a lot of our strategic planning work under the One Minnesota plan. So, George, I hope you have a chance to mention some of that, but welcome.
Chair, thank you very much. Chair and council members. So I am not presenting alone. There is a host of leaders that will be presenting with us, and I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to present to you and the whole of the council all the wonderful stuff that has happened here since 2019, which we're 2023 now. So I think first up, do I have the clicker? I guess I should do this. Let's see. So we're going to go through, every division is going to present and tell us our story of what we've done so far. Like the chair said, we have a lot of work to do ahead of us, but I'm super excited to present at least the accomplishments that has happened over the last 3 or 4 years. So first up will be transit, and Leslie will present.
Chair Zelli, council members, good afternoon. My name is Leslie Kinderis, and I am currently serving as the interim general manager for Metro Transit. And I feel compelled to give a little bit of a disclaimer because this is not going to be all of what we've done since 2019. But we did look at the Metropolitan Council strategic plan and thought about some of the key decisions you've made in terms of budget decisions, planning, investments, and tried to highlight some of the breadth of accomplishments from the last 4 years. But it will not be completely comprehensive. Just by way of background, Metro Transit is one of the 5 divisions that comprise the Metropolitan Council. We're home to 3,000 employees. Our annual operating budget this year is around $530 million. And our authorized capital program and capital improvement program is around $6.7 billion, just to give you kind of a sense of our scope. Our mission is to deliver environmentally sustainable transportation choices that link people, jobs, and community conveniently, consistently, and safely. And we do this by providing an integrated network of buses, light rail, and commuter rail, as well as resources for those who carpool, vanpool, walk, or bike in the metro area. Our footprint spans more than 900 square miles and covers nearly 100 communities. And we currently are operating around 75 active bus routes, 37 park and rides with active service, and have over 12,000 bus stops in our system. So the first accomplishment I want to talk to you about is just highlighting the fact that Metro Transit kept service on the street during a global pandemic. And in my opinion, if this were our only slide and our only accomplishment, I still think that would be enough because maintaining service during the height of the pandemic was just an incredibly significant undertaking. And if you think back to this time about 3 years ago, COVID was definitely in the news. This time next week, the governor was issuing a stay-at-home order. So it was a very uncertain and a time full of fear in many ways. And just to state the obvious, transit is driven by people. And I mean that literally, transit vehicles are operated by human beings, but the entirety of our operations relies on people showing up each and every day. That includes operators, police officers, facility workers, cleaners, control center staff, maintenance workers, and many, many others. In fact, about 90% of our employees were deemed on-site essential employees during the stay-at-home portion of the pandemic. So it just cannot be overstated that we had 27 humans, all vulnerable to this novel coronavirus, showing up to make sure other people could get where they needed to go. This slide in front of you lists just some of the examples of policy or procedure changes we needed to make really quickly and early on in the pandemic. And we recognized and acknowledged right from the start that we are great at running transit, but we are not public health experts. And what this meant is throughout the pandemic, especially early on, we frequently consulted with health experts, the Minnesota Department of Health, local public health workers, to make sure that our approach to this really was in the spirit of trying to slow the spread of the virus. I'll just mention on that first bullet, the essential travel only message. This is difficult for a transit agency to do. We literally told people early on, do not ride transit if you don't need to. But the fact that we were continuing to provide trips in tens of thousands of trips daily really underscored the essential service aspect of transit during this time. But that message probably relates to my next slide about rebuilding ridership. So the fact that we kept service on the street during the pandemic is a defining accomplishment for us, but there's really no doubt that the pandemic and the travel behavior changes spurred by the pandemic have really changed the landscape for transit. Ridership is a key indicator of that, and rebuilding ridership is one of the aspects of the council's strategic plan. During the depth of the pandemic, we dropped to well below half our pre-pandemic ridership system-wide. And now we're hovering around 55% of our pre-pandemic ridership system-wide. And I keep saying system-wide because different modes have performed differently, and some have been more resilient than others. So for example, bus rapid transit that offers all-day frequent service has been a lot more resistant and hasn't seen quite that drop in ridership. On the other hand, modes that are really focused on a 9-to-5 work commute that brings people to one of the downtowns have seen a steeper drop-off. But today, we can report good news that in 2022, compared to 2021, council-wide, ridership grew by 17%. Currently, we're providing between 120 and 140,000 rides each weekday. And this progress is heartening, but we also know we have a lot of work to do ahead of us to retain our current riders and attract new riders. This slide has a bullet point on transit pass options. That's just one example of ways we're working to understand and meet customer needs. One accomplishment of the last 4 years was launching and expanding universal pass programs to colleges in our region. This past fall, 39,000 University of Minnesota Twin Cities students joined the ranks of other college students who are part of universal transit pass programs. Some of the other schools include Anoka Ramsey Community College, Anoka Technical College, Augsburg University, Normandale, McAllister College. And we are seeing strong ridership increases when colleges switch from the conventional college pass to a universal pass program. Metro Transit also in the last 4 years launched the residential pass, which provides discounted unlimited ride or unlimited use transit passes designed specifically for multifamily developments of 10 units or more. But beyond just the pass programs as an example, I also wanted to mention that Metro Transit has developed what we have called our Stronger, Better Strategic Operations Plan. And this is something we updated the Transportation Committee on last year, and we plan to return to the Transportation Committee on a quarterly basis this year to continue sharing our progress on our Stronger, Better plan. The term Stronger, Better comes from conversations we started having around July of 2020. We recognized in mid-2020 that the deeply disruptive and traumatic events our region was experiencing, the pandemic, but also the murder of George Floyd, the civil unrest that followed and affected so many of the communities we serve, these factors really demanded of us that we step back and try to envision a future that's stronger and better, and not simply looking to return to how things were in 2019. Our Stronger, Better plan is comprised of 4 goals and 4 core elements, and I'm not going to walk through them all today, but I just wanted to briefly mention our first core element, and by core element we mean practices that we weave through all of our work. Our first core element is equity. And part of why I wanted to talk about this is because it has been such a core part, I believe, to the Walz and Flanagan administration and the vision for One Minnesota. And within Metro Transit, following the murder of George Floyd, our former general manager pulled together his leadership team. We brought in our equity and inclusion team, comprised primarily of frontline staff, and really started to look at what more can we be doing as Metro Transit, both within our organization and across the region, to advance equity. And a lot of those ideas are now incorporated in our strategic plan. I also wanted to recognize, in the spirit of recognizing council accomplishments, that the council set aside funding from the general purpose levy to allocate to equity projects. And Metro Transit was able to secure 2 of those internal equity grants of sorts. One went to our marketing department for $150,000 in 2021. The marketing department used this in several ways, including entering into year-long contracts with media outlets such as the Hmong Times, Spokesman Recorder, KMOJ, La Raza, and others to build a consistent presence and flow of information about Metro Transit to their audiences. It also was used by our marketing department to do a Metropolitan Council Underutilized Business, or MCUB, vendor recruitment campaign. The other equity funding we received was $200,000 for a bus maintenance apprenticeship program. The Bus Maintenance Apprenticeship Program is a state-registered apprenticeship that was developed in partnership with Bus Maintenance, ETU, the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry, and other internal partners. And it's designed to encourage non-traditional entrants into the trade. The program began its first, or just began in the first week of January 2023. And there's no mechanical experience necessary to join. The apprentices are Metro Transit employees. They receive full benefits and pay while they're in the classroom and during their training. And they're supported by a network of bus maintenance technician mentors. The apprenticeship will continue to build a more diverse workforce within Metro Transit and really help ensure we have a workforce filled with high-skilled technicians. Right now, the program is made up of 14 apprentices, 7 external recruits, and 7 internal recruits. And upon completion of the program, they will become journey-level technicians and will continue employment with Metro Transit. So the $200,000 that the council allocated from the general purpose levy for this has been spent on tool sets, tool storage, computer software for the 14 apprentices. So that was a bit of a tangent from this slide, but the broader point is that I just wanted to share how the equity grants and more broadly this idea that we really need to look forward and not just consider going back to the pre-pandemic quote-unquote normal as our goal. So the next topic and set of accomplishments I wanted to address is addressing public safety and security. This, as the chair mentioned earlier when discussing the agency safety plans, has been a top priority for the last 4 years. And from our customer satisfaction surveys, we know the sense of feeling safe while riding transit is one of the strongest correlates with whether people feel satisfied with transit overall. This council has made some significant investments in public safety over the last 4 years. This included adopting a body-worn camera policy to allow our police department to wear body-worn cameras and also funding the purchase of those cameras. It included purchasing new real-time cameras for all of our light rail cars to ensure that we have a high-quality real-time stream of information coming from those, as well as establishing a real-time information center in our police department to monitor those feeds. We've continued to invest in more official presence on the system, including our homeless action team that reaches out and works with people experiencing homelessness on transit to connect them to services and to housing. I also wanted to touch briefly on the police review that the council undertook following the murder of George Floyd. In June of 2020, Chair Zelli called on the council to review the Metro Transit Police Department. And the first phase of that was contracting with the Citizens League to do deep community engagement. And over the course of a year, they reached thousands of people to get their sense of what leads to their sense of safety on transit. The next phase of that work was mentioned earlier during introductions. Councilmember Chambliss chaired a work group of council members, many are still on the council today, who took in the Citizens League's findings, supplemented that with additional input from employees, from stakeholders, some research we brought forward, and put together recommendations and a vision for public safety on transit. And then the next phase was really sending it back to Metro Transit staff, where we developed a safety and security action plan. Now, this is a completely different document than the agency safety plans you approved earlier tonight, but it's really grounded in that community engagement and the employee engagement, and ended up identifying 40 action steps that we are actively taking now. So it's not a plan sitting on the shelf. Those are steps that are in some sort of stage of implementation, or in some cases have been implemented. Finally, the last bullet on here relates to work we've been doing with the Walz administration and at the legislature, specifically to advocate for an administrative citation for fare noncompliance. Right now, if you are riding transit without paying, that is a misdemeanor in state law. Only our police officers can cite you for that, but if you get a ticket, it's about a $180 fine. So the penalty is not really commensurate with the violation of not paying a $2 fare. But on top of that, it means that our police officers are really stretched thin between doing routine fare inspection and addressing public safety issues on our system. So our proposal that's been supported by the governor is to create a set of non-law enforcement personnel who could do that routine fare inspection and really allow our police officers to focus on more serious issues. And fundamentally, I think part of what we're experiencing is certainly that transit is part of the communities we serve, and a lot of the challenges our communities are facing as it relates to drug use, as it relates to untreated mental illness, as it relates to unsheltered homelessness, are becoming quite visible on transit. And that's going to require a lot of partnerships beyond the council to really get at the systemic root issues leading to what we're seeing on transit. So the next slide is about providing reliable service to meet needs. Back in March of 2020, following that stay-at-home order, Metro Transit initially reduced service because we anticipated a steep drop in demand. And right at the very beginning, we didn't yet have federal relief funds, so anticipating the steep drop in fare revenue was also cause for concern. But in the last year or so, reductions to service have been driven solely because of a lack of operator resources. We're currently about 200 operators short of our budgeted level. I will say because of past reductions in service to ensure we're providing a reliable service, we currently do have a sufficient number of operators to operate our service, but we're at about 70% of the service level compared to 2019. There's a lot of workforce recruitment and retention efforts underway. One accomplishment of this council was raising ATU wages last year. There was a 5% general increase, and a couple other adjustments mean we can offer a starting operator wage of over $26 right now. So that investment has led to an uptick in applications, along with a lot of work happening by our operations staff, marketing staff, human resources staff, and many others. We are starting to see more interest in the role, and our March 18th quarterly service change will be the first time since 2021 that we haven't had to reduce service because of a shortage. On the slide, I mentioned Network Now. This is a planning project that's just getting underway now to really reconnect with riders and community to understand their needs for transit and their priorities for transit, given all the changes we've experienced. And this will help us because we are dealing with constrained resources like having an operator shortage, help us prioritize what's most important to our region now as it relates to transit investment and transit service planning. And finally, the last bullet on here isn't really about reliability, but wanted to recognize that some of the accomplishments over the last 4 years have been investments in real-time information for our customers. So investments in technology and signage, and channels to connect with our Transit Information Center to make sure customers have access to the most up-to-date information on schedules. And this is my final slide, and just to briefly touch on the work we've done over the last 4 years to advance our region's vision for transit. I think part of this vision is really expanding on high-frequency transit, the type of transit that was most resilient to ridership decline. But there are other advantages and benefits to building out the network as well. For example, our Transit-Oriented Development Office has identified $13.7 billion in development that's been permitted near high-frequency transit between 2009 and 2021. And a strong transit network also supports climate goals by providing a more attractive alternative to single occupancy vehicle travel. The first couple of slides on here relate to bus rapid transit, which is where we have a package of service enhancements to bus routes. And this can lead to up to a 25% faster service in local bus service thanks to signal priority, wider stop spacing, off-board fare payment, all-door boarding, and even bus lanes in some locations. The stations also come with more amenities, lights, on-demand heat, emergency telephones, real-time information, and so forth. So in the last 4 years, this council opened 3 new bus rapid transit lines, the C line, which travels mainly along Penn Avenue and links downtown Minneapolis with Brooklyn Center Transit Center. This opened in June 2019. And the C line also marked the first use of electric buses in the Metro Transit system. The C line fleet includes 8 battery electric buses. The last 4 years also saw the opening of the Orange Line, which follows I-35W between Burnsville and downtown Minneapolis, which opened in December 2021, and the D Line that opened in December 2022 and links Brooklyn Center Transit Center and the Mall of America to downtown Minneapolis, Richfield, Bloomington. Network Next, not to be confused with Network Now, was a plan that was adopted by the council, March 2021. It's the 20-year plan for expanding and improving the bus network and included identifying the next 3 routes following the E line, which will be F, G, and H line. That B line and E line are going to open in 24 and 25 respectively, and with our existing and planned BRT investments, by 2030, we expect to provide all-day service to about 580,000 people and about 600,000 jobs. 44% of the people served by this network are people who identify as Black, Indigenous, or people of color, and about 13% of the households that will be served by these bus rapid transit lines in 2030 are households that don't have access to a vehicle today. In addition to bus rapid transit, other transitway projects certainly advanced during this time as well. Green Line extension construction, Gold Line construction is underway. The Blue Line extension saw a route modification process they're working through. Metro Transit launched Metro Transit Micro in partnership with MTS, and I believe you're going to hear more about that from the MTS portion of the program, but this pilot is an on-demand ride-share service that is meant to increase access to mobility in a part of North Minneapolis right now. And in addition to bus rapid transit and these other transitway investments, we continue down the road of speed and reliability investments. And last but not least, we'll just mention that in addition to the C-Line buses, the 8 electric buses we have now, the council also last year adopted a zero emissions bus transition plan, which includes short, medium, and long-term targets. Our short-term target is between 2022 and 2027, at least 20% of Metro Transit's 40-foot bus replacements. Procurements will be electric. And I don't have a separate slide on it, but another accomplishment is the completion of the North Loop Bus Garage, which is going to be equipped to help us meet our zero emissions bus transition goals. So with that, I think I'm turning it over to Lisa Thompson, the General Manager of Environmental Services.
Thanks, Leslie.
Chair and council members, I'm Lisa Thompson, General Manager of Environmental Services. You can call me Lisa, and I go by she, her, hers. Quick flyover. This will be quick. There's a lot of notable accomplishments of the last 4 years, but there's one that stands out as significant in terms of long-lasting effect on what we do in environmental services. So I'm going to start with that. You brought us fresh thinking, fresh ideas. Some people would call it growth mindset. And as a result of that, you helped us embrace a new vision, clean water for future generations. And then the spirit of that fresh thinking, let's break out a fresh box of Pearson's salted nut rolls. To
Oh, God.
Oh, wow. And I thought it would be good to have audience participation.
Wow, this
This is, you might be wondering, why salted nut roll? What's the point of that? So to satisfy your curiosity, it's because it's a fun way to illustrate another example of fresh thinking. Pearson's is a local candy company. And I think they're a great example, early example of growth mindset and fresh thinking in an organization. So they survived the Depression while other candy companies went out of business. A candy bar was a chocolate bar. Was a chocolate bar, was a chocolate bar. And so when folks didn't have a lot of money to part with, they couldn't justify parting with their nickel. Candy bars were a nickel at that time for a chocolate bar. But Pearson's took the, well, what would maybe help them justify and spend those nickels? So they replaced the chocolate with peanuts so they could keep the price the same. And they sold candy bars because it was more filling and little justification, a tiny amount of protein too as well. So, you know, the history there is they have a crown on their sign because other companies said, wow, you're the king of candy. Look what you did. So, you know, for us, what's our chocolate bar and our salted nut roll? Our chocolate bar is, when you think about wastewater treatment, and this is excerpt right out of our regulator's fact sheet, dated 2008, happened to have that one in my file, so I didn't look to see if they've updated it, but they talk about what's the definition of wastewater treatment. Once wastewater is generated, it is usually transported through a series of sanitary sewer pipes, which I'll talk about today too, to a wastewater treatment facility, and those facilities will remove, reduce, or destroy harmful substances, chemical compounds, and microorganisms in that wastewater, and they'll put it in a river or a lake, whatever is appropriate to discharge it. That's the candy bar, chocolate, right? Chocolate. So for us, we want to be like Pearson's and think about that's what we still need to do, but can we take out the bad, keep the good stuff? You know, the region probably needs us to do more than that traditional definition. So for us, we are changing the name of our facilities to water resource recovery facilities because we're already keeping some of the good stuff, and we see opportunities to do more of that in the future. So illustrate a few things that we've done and are doing. I think at the top of the list, when you think about clean water for future generations, what we learned from our region in getting feedback and input to the Water Resources Policy Plan, which you're going to be exposed to here soon and have already become aware of. We're trying to listen to more of the region to hear what their challenges are and their situations when it comes to water. Sometimes it's going to be stormwater issues that they want to talk about, and other times it's going to be drinking water issues. But in our mission to partner, plan, and provide services to protect the region's water, we know we need to have our ears open to all things about water because all water is connected, and we only have the water we have. We're not going to have more in the future. So we really need to do our best to take care of it in all facets of water. The second one on there, the developing of the priorities waters list. We have worked with other partners in the region to develop a list that identifies what are the issues and challenges and concerns out there. We won't do all that work, but helping everybody understand the challenges, they'll see the opportunities and we'll get coordinated or collective efforts to address those priority waters. And of course, you all know we treat a lot of wastewater. 250 million gallons a day. And if you want to put that in perspective, over the 4 years, we would have filled the US Bank Stadium up 6,115 times. That's a lot of water, 24/7, 365 days a year. And we do it unfailingly. A lot of utilities talk about treating 95% of the waste that comes down the pipes. And year after year, we treat 100% of it. We monitor and sustain water quality, top of the list. What's our compliance with our permit requirements? We have, when you add the continuous compliance, 126 years between our 9 wastewater treatment plants. That means some of them have 30, 31 years where they haven't missed a permit requirement. And just to put that in perspective, every year we do 22,000 different analyses, so there's a lot of opportunities for something to not be what it needs to be. And we also monitor industrial facilities because we need to prevent them from putting something in that will be hard, could upset our facility, or it could be something you can't take out, so it's a prevent the pollution as opposed to treat it. And we also do work to assess and monitor what's the quality of 170 lakes, 20 streams, and 4 rivers. So we're very involved in a partnership activity with that. In the 4 years, we've had quite a bit of activity in terms of our systems growing again a little bit. We have added the Rogers wastewater treatment facility. We connected the city of Loretto. And right now, we're planning for relocating the downtown Hastings facility, which is something we've promised that community we would do for some time. And at the top, so we talk about quality on the last slide with our compliance. Our cost is also important to us, and we've held the wastewater rates to less than 5% during that 4-year window. And we're proud of that accomplishment, particularly in light of some of the things that have come at us through pandemic and other things. During this time, we've also been restoring our infrastructure, and a big part of that is all the pipes that bring the wastewater to us. Put that in context, in the 4 years, we treated or rehabilitated 25 miles of pipe. And if you're familiar with Minnehaha Creek, you can get a sense for how much that is. We did a great job, I think, dealing with the pandemic. We had 3 goals, and we all contributed towards that success. One, and first and foremost, was to minimize the spread of COVID in the workplace. Our employees had to be in the workplace to do their work. We also wanted to make sure that we operated in a way that prevented a disruption to our ability to meet our permits and treat all the waste. And we wanted to support employee well-being. And I think we did a really good job with that. One of the things that we didn't expect to do as a result of COVID was to begin to test our wastewater for viral elements and be able to use that to help predict how many cases were going on in the region, or whether the caseloads were going up or down. So we've been partnering, and the Minnesota Department of Health has been funding that work, and they want us to continue. And we found that to be pretty fulfilling to provide that kind of additional support for public health, because that's why we treat wastewater after all. So now we can kind of do it on both sides. And lastly, we really strive to collaborate and to be seen as a potential partner for the work that needs to get done. We've started a relationship with our tribal nations because interceptors go through areas often that are near rivers, and there's often sensitive areas. And we've started doing open houses and working with them to identify and work together on that. And we have been doing water efficiency grants with the help of the Clean Water Fund funding, and we've been able to reduce the amount of water that folks are using by replacing appliances or coming up with irrigation improvements so they can save water. And lastly, it was in the news a lot. We did an emergency response effort with a lot of partnership to respond to an industry that had let flammable liquids into the sewer, so they weren't permitted to do that, and caused a fire and some manhole covers flying into the air, to much of our dismay. But the partnership effort in responding to make sure we didn't let that happen again, have a response plan, which dilution by adding water would be a quick solution to that. But we've actually added ongoing real-time monitoring to detect for any levels of flammables in that system now. So I think we made it through and learned some things and developed relationships at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. MTS?
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Charles Carlson. I serve as the executive director for MTS. The council has been a fantastic place to build a career over 17 years, with a little over a year serving as executive director of MTS. Prior to that, I led the bus rapid transit program at Metro Transit, and it's been a pleasure to bring these experiences to the council. And I look forward to continuing serving you as the governing body over the next 4 years. To that end, there really are two big missions that Metropolitan Transportation Services does. One is long-range transportation planning. The other is contracted services. So if there's two things I leave you with tonight, it's to introduce myself and then to share that those are the two big missions that we accomplish. I can't take credit for most of the last 4 years because I was serving Metro Transit at the time, but am happy to provide an overview and some of the first-term accomplishments that MTS delivered over the first term. One of the most important things we do in transportation planning is manage the region's long-range transportation plan, the 2040 Transportation Policy Plan. This had a significant update in 2020, but the next TPP is beginning development now. So one of the biggest pieces that we'll do in the next couple years is the next transportation policy plan in conjunction with the Regional Development Guide that you'll hear more about in the next presentation. To make informed travel plans, we do a lot of research and work studying travel behavior. In particular, we do a transit onboard survey where we intercept customers on the transit system and ask them about their trip and their travel purposes. This allows us to create a statistically valid inference of travel behavior in the region that we use to secure federal grants, including for the Federal Capital Investment Grant Program. So securing a $1 billion grant from the federal government includes a critical piece of understanding travel behavior and capturing that in a forecast model that the FTA would ultimately accept. This has been particularly important over the last 4 years as the pandemic has truly reshaped how people have traveled in the region, particularly on the transit system and in other forms of life. The peak period downtown commute has been reshaped significantly, and we have had the opportunity to continue to evaluate that. That work continues, and we look forward to sharing it as we develop the next transportation policy plan. Other pieces of our work include system evaluations. So a key piece of intelligence in what is happening in the system is to measure how it's performing, as well as to set targets for performance of the system in safety, in condition and asset repair, and other factors that we'll be sharing with you soon as our work is underway. We also are involved in reviewing the transportation elements of comprehensive plans. So we work very closely with community development in executing that work, reviewing local communities' plans for conformance and consistency with the region's plans. A key piece of our federal deliverables in the last 4 years has been to update the public participation plan for transportation projects. So this nests within broader council participation plans, but is specific to engagement around transportation planning to adhere to federal requirements and to meet a number of different things that plan addresses. Finally, for transportation planning, we also staff the Transportation Advisory Board. So this is a 34-member body that is comprised of elected officials from around the region, as well as a council representative and council-appointed members serving both geographic areas and modal areas. So we staff this board, and we work very closely with the TAB, advising the council on transportation decisions around the region. A key piece of that work involves the Transportation Improvement Program. This is really the enabling document for the flow of federal funds into the region. Maybe the most common business item that comes before the Transportation Committee are amendments to the TIP. We'll explain what those are. There's a lot of them, but really it's updating the list of federal projects, federally supported projects for transportation in the region. The regional solicitation is one of the largest things that we administer in transportation planning. This program is a competitive process that regionally allocates federal surface transportation funding in 2 cycles of the solicitation. That it typically runs on biannual cycles. In 2 cycles in the first term, over 147 projects were selected for $570 million of federal funding, and that combined with roughly that much local match funding for really a significant improvement in the region's transportation system across modes. About half of those funds were for roadway projects, but significant portions of these funds were for transit projects and for bicycle and pedestrian projects as well. The other key thing we do in MTS is contracted service. So about half of our staff are working in long-range planning, about half of our staff are administering service contracts for transit service, primarily on Metro Mobility. Metro Mobility is our largest service, although we also do contracted fixed route, Transit Link, a van pool program, and Metro Transit Micro as well. The number of drivers that are working on MTS service is about the same as the Metro Transit workforce, but none of them are our employees. They are all hired through service contracts. The pandemic response was a signature element of the last 4 years in MTS contracted service. Metro Mobility continued to operate through the pandemic, but demand changed significantly and pivoted enormously to meet community needs. Transporting essential workers, healthcare workers, providing social service connections, providing delivery of groceries and other items to our customers was a significant adaptation that happened almost overnight within MTS, and something that our staff is very proud to have been delivered. We continue to innovate in this program, and we're looking forward to sharing more about this, of how we've responded not just to the pandemic, but ongoing community needs. We also provide regional services, including to 12 cities that have opted to run independent transit systems, the opt-out providers or suburban providers we work closely with in granting funds. We own most of the fleet that the opt-out providers operate, and we replace those buses as well. Technology is a significant focus of our contracted service. To some extent, our service is really a technology platform that ends up getting somebody a ride. So we work very closely with our information services staff to provide not just the equipment on the bus, but the architecture and the servers and all the back-end equipment that is essential, is as essential as the driver to work smoothly for our service to run. We also have a compliance function as well, as well as safety management in our system. So as I mentioned, Metro Mobility is our largest ridership. It comprises the vast majority of the MTS budget. Increasing ridership in Metro Mobility has been a public policy issue for many years. The region continues to age. Metro Mobility is a transit service for people with disabilities who are unable to use regular route transit, primarily older adults. We have an updated system. We've updated service hours and areas served by Metro Mobility over time. Significantly, something that we are working toward for the future is a transition to a state forecast program. So Metro Mobility funding will be coming from the state on a forecast basis. That is very good news. It means that Metro Mobility is not dependent on appropriations on a year-over-year basis from the state. So this is a good news, but it's also a significant amount of work to plan for and transition into over the next 2 years. So a growing focus of our program will be to prepare and manage that transition to state funding. We also launched Metro Transit Micro. So this is a significant partnership with Metro Transit. The micro service itself is actually delivered by MTS in close partnership with Metro Transit, who manages the technology, marketing, and other aspects of the planning of the program. So something we're pleased to have launched in the last year, and have been happy to see the growth of that program. There's also a couple important pieces coming on the horizon. The first, we're developing a better name for this, but the waiver service program would reshape a significant portion of our Metro Mobility program by working much more closely with human service providers and the state for how we fund and deliver these services for greater flexibility for our customers, but also a better funding picture for the service as well by leveraging federal dollars that we don't currently leverage. This was one of the recommendations from a long review process for Metro Mobility that concluded in 2018, and we've continued to implement aspects of those recommendations over the last 4 years. And then finally, zero-emission buses are an exciting new development. The council, I think tonight actually authorized the first zero-emission buses that we'll purchase on the MTS side. These are for a competitive grant that was awarded to Southwest Transit that the council will purchase and own those buses that Southwest will use. We're excited for that. We're also wrapping up a zero-emission bus transition plan. This is a complement to Metro Transit's plan, and really in combination, the council now will have a full fleet transition plan for our buses. MTS has about 1,100 buses. Most of them are small buses that we're working to replace, but we also have good opportunities to, in the near term, expand our zero-emission fleet, and we're excited to share that with you very soon. With that, I will turn it over to Lisa Barajas.
Thanks, Charles.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Barajas, the Executive Director of the Community Development Division. I use she, her pronouns, and you can just call me Lisa. I want to start with some of the work we do in community development. We are about 100 staff. I'd say we're one of our smaller divisions, but a mighty one nonetheless, and take on quite a bit of work. We are roughly split in 2 departments. Half of our team is in our housing authority. We operate the largest housing choice voucher program in the state of Minnesota, and also own more than 150 housing units that are scattered across our service area in the metro. The other half of our department is in regional planning, and we cover a variety of things, not least of which is coordinating our long-range regional plans with the rest of the divisions here at the council, as well as doing more specific things around housing policy, the regional park system, and guiding land uses in the region. We have a smaller operating budget than our sister divisions here, roughly $150 million in an operating budget, and most of that is in pass-through dollars in our housing choice program and in our grant programs. And then we also manage a significant amount of grants through a variety of state resources and regional resources as part of our regional park system. So our budget looks big, but our staff is very small because most of that money is going straight out the door to others in the region. Today I wanted to talk about some of our large accomplishments as they relate to the strategic plan that the council has. 2 of those priorities fell squarely within community development, one of them being around housing and creating a broader housing spectrum in the region over these last 4 years. And I'll get into the climate one in just a couple of slides as well. But we touch on housing in a number of different ways. While we don't have the local control that cities and counties have in that work, we do play a significant role both as a housing authority in providing tenant supports and rent payments to support the region's residents finding safe and stable housing in this region, as well as numerous grant programs that support the production of affordable housing, and then finally our policy work and our technical assistance to local governments. So just in the last 4 years, we've had just a significant amount of accomplishment. We've had, this council has made historic investments in our local housing incentives account, which is our primary affordable housing program that we have, a grant program that goes to local governments to support affordable housing development in those communities. Our baseline funding as defined in statute is $1.5 million each year that we award. But over the course of this first term, our council awarded, or actually made available and awarded more than $20 million in just in this program, including an affordable homeownership pilot as part of that effort to really make any difference we could, even with the small amount of dollars that we have available to us to make a dent in home ownership disparities in the region. We also were awarded in partnership with the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority and selected as one of 9 sites of HUD's Mobility Demonstration Program, which is a multi-year research program that we will conduct with with Minneapolis Public Housing Authority, excuse me, to study the effect that additional housing supports and housing search can provide families, and the effect that those supports provide on family success and when they move to different locations around the region. This is in addition to our standard housing choice voucher program. It is an interesting long-range research program that hopefully will help support some of the work that the council had already been doing in our housing authority in providing additional supports and moving to opportunities that help support success for families as we're helping them to find homes that meet their needs. And I should say, related to that too, that we also have a wonderful partnership with the city of Edina, who found themselves with some additional funds through their own inclusionary housing ordinance that generated funds that they were looking to put into securing permanent affordable homes within their city. And they turned to us and said, hey, could we partner? We would love to find a way to purchase new homes that we can make permanently affordable, but we'd love if you could operate them for us. And so through great discussion and partnership and with the support of this council, we were able to secure those $2 million and acquire 4 new housing units and add those to our portfolio in the portfolio of homes that we have in our family affordable housing program. We think it's just a great pilot effort that we hope that we can see proliferate around the region as another opportunity to create those scattered site choices in areas that are otherwise really hard for our residents to place their vouchers. And as part of that, across this whole spectrum of work, of both tenant support, policy work, grant work, and home ownership, one of the opportunities that we continue to explore is how we might use our housing choice vouchers to support transitioning to home ownership for those of our tenants that are ready to move on or starting to what we say income out of the program, where they are finding success and have those opportunities to move into that. There's one other program in the state of Minnesota, and not a lot of guidance from the feds, just that you can do it. And we said, okay. So we're looking into it and seeing that. I know you can expect to hear more from our staff over the course of this year as we start to put some meat on the bones of what a program like that could look like. Just last week, our teams with Metro Transit's Homeless Action Team were here to present on the work that our teams do collectively together to support those who are experiencing homelessness on our transit system. This isn't, I just can't say how meaningful this partnership has been, and I know that an hour-long conversation I'm going to condense into like 7 more seconds here for you, and it just doesn't do justice for the significant amount of time and effort that both of our teams put into really meeting the needs of individuals and families who are finding themselves in situations that no one ever wants to find themselves in, and really getting them into safer and stabler locations, and moving them more permanently into housing that's actually going to meet their needs in the long term. We are just so proud of both the partnership that we've been able to cultivate that I think is unique amongst both housing authorities and transit agencies in the nation, to have such a close working relationship and handoff between what our officers experience on the trains and how they connect to both our housing service providers in the region and with the resources that our team in the Housing Authority brings to the table. We've been so successful that the Housing and Urban Development has provided us with a significant amount of vouchers to continue to support this work. We started with a much smaller pool in the mainstream program, and over the last couple of years have just been granted more because we've had so much success in this program. And we continue to build that collaboration with state and regional agencies and at various tables around the region, because we know that despite all of these efforts, that the issues and families that are experiencing homelessness doesn't seem to abate. There seems to be more folks every day, and especially with the rising costs of housing and the difficulty for both finding rental housing and home ownership opportunities, that even one illness or one job loss can really put a lot of families into a tailspin, and we know they find themselves in very difficult situations. So we're very proud of this effort, but we know that this can't be the only effort, but we're also happy to be at that table collaborating on what regional solutions can look like and how we can be a part of those at the council. I want to turn to some of our climate work, which was another priority that the council had identified in your strategic plan for the last 4 years, was really moving toward being a leader and addressing that climate challenge head on in this region. We already are experiencing climate change impacts today on the ground, whether it's significant amounts of rainfall that melt during the cold months when our ground is still frozen and we have pools of water everywhere, to having significant rainstorm events over some years where we were experiencing catastrophic levels of water and rainfall on the ground that impact our ability to move around this region. It closes bridges, it limits the ability for our buses even to get on our regular routes, for our riders to walk up to some of their own bus stops to access those facilities, as well as extreme heat having impacts on the infrastructure that we own as well, and the responses that we need to have to that. So regardless of how we got here, we know that we are already seeing that it is incumbent upon us to do work to take care of the regional investments that are our responsibility here. And to that end, after a couple of years of significant amount of work during the pandemic, no less, our cross-divisional team of staff from across the council worked together to develop a climate action work plan that really focuses on the council's own operations and our own greenhouse gas emissions and the resilience of the systems that we are responsible for. Not just the systems, but all of our assets, our buildings, our houses, our offices, in addition to our rolling stock, our rail lines, and our interceptors and our manhole covers. All of the things that all of our staff come to talk to you about on a regular basis are a part of what we're responsible for managing. This is a significant effort that we think dovetails really nicely with the state's climate action framework, of which our team also participated in those statewide efforts. So this really represents how we operationalize that work within the many walls and buildings of the council's work. We also, as part of that, have developed a climate vulnerability assessment that was really focused on those assets and that the council is responsible for managing and owns and operates, and where we expect to see both heat impacts and inland flooding impacts. We're really good at managing and responding to crisis in the moment, and we also know that we get riverine flooding on a regular basis. We got that handled, but the amount of water on the ground that we see in places where you're like, why is there so much water pooling here, is pretty significant, and really impacts even our own abilities to have our staff access their work sites and to get to some of those locations. So it's quite important. That assessment was while we developed it for ourselves, we have put it out in the data associated with it in a form that our partners in local governments have also found useful, especially given that many of our partners don't have the types of analytical staff capacity within their own walls to be able to do the type of analysis that we're able to accomplish here at the council. So being able to share what we're learning with our local government partners so that they can apply their experiencing the same things that we're experiencing with their own buildings and their own roadways and their own wastewater, local trunks, sewer lines in that. And so it's been just an excellent partnership between the council and local governments and sharing and how we address these challenges together. We also provide a significant amount of technical assistance in addition to sharing our own experiences, but technical assistance for local governments to implement their plans. And within the climate front, we provide both a lot of analytical tools, but some of the things you'll see on here include our growing shade tool, which is an assessment of the urban tree canopy in this region, and certainly as it relates to communities of color, low-income communities, and communities that are typically bear the burden of climate change, and is a great resource for local governments to use, but also others to use who are thinking about how where they should be prioritizing investments in tree canopy, especially as we experience increasing pests like emerald ash borer that is taking down and threatening a significant portion of the region's canopy. We provide a lot of resources around SoulSmart that you'll see there, that so much so that we were awarded the first gold designation for a region for the work that we have done to support local governments being ready for solar installation in their communities. And that's everything from the plan work in their comprehensive plan to their policy work to their permitting, even what a permit application looks like, from policy to application and everything in between, and helping local governments and supporting them in determining what types of installations might work within their community, how best to prioritize them. Having so many communities within our region receive their own local government SoulSmart designations of silver and gold, in addition to the amount of green energy work and renewable energy work that we've done within our own facilities is what earned us that designation, and we were, the first region in the nation to receive that designation. And again, supporting everybody around the region in their efforts in planning for and adapting to climate change, and you'll hear a lot more from us over the course of this year. We're really excited for the work that we have to bring in front of you this year as we continue that work. One of the largest efforts that Charles had mentioned earlier, one of the largest efforts that my team is responsible for is advancing Thrive MSP 2040 and coordinating the review of comprehensive plans, providing technical support in the development of those plans, answering all those questions, and coordinating all of the review of I think there's probably 40 to 50 staff across our agency that are responsible for plan review. So bringing those pieces together, identifying where we might have some conflict or tension internally, but also communicating with local governments about what we're finding in our reviews and working through issues to ensure that we are having plans that are conform to our system plans and are consistent with the council's policies. There are 188 cities, townships, and counties in the region. 2 of our counties do the plans for the townships within their jurisdiction. So we have 168 plans that this council, when you first started, you were just in the influx of all of those plans coming in, and I'm sure it felt like a fire hose of plans. So you're like, what are we looking at? What are we reviewing for? But just a significant amount of work that our staff had done to bring you plans that were already going to be conforming to system plans and consistent with council policy. I can't say enough how much work goes into that before it even comes across or is posted to an agenda for your review, to make that step of the process as easy for local governments as possible. We also updated our 2040 Parks Policy Plan, and at the beginning of my presentation, I had a slide, an image of staff, actually of youth who were leading a public participation process as part of our Youth in Parks program, really identifying the need to connect with youth and understand and make available that regional parks are an excellent recreational resource for youth in the region, but we're finding that our parks are underutilized both by communities of color and youth in particular. And using and working with youth to lead that process of identifying what those barriers are and how we get there. So that was part of our 2040 policy plan process that included in, several system additions to our policy process, to our system plan. This council also is responsible for adopting the first comprehensive economic development strategy for the region. This region had never had one before. We're one of the largest regions in the nation that did not have what the feds call a SENS. But having the regional economic framework that we developed in partnership with the Center for Economic Inclusion and Greater MSP made numerous entities, local governments, businesses, and others eligible to compete for federal Department of Economic Development dollars in this region. And we've seen some success of folks being able to compete for those dollars since the adoption of this plan. And we really look forward to picking this plan up again as part of our regional development guide for 2050 and updating that so that we continue to be eligible for that work, but also address the very real important regional issues around economic competitiveness, economic inclusion within the region's economy, and how that relates to all of the work that we do here at the council. And finally, I know Councilmember Lee said this earlier and mentioned this, but one of this council was also responsible for launching our Regional Parks Equity Grant Program, which uses a combination of bonds and parks interest earnings, which were newly made available to us through a change in statute a couple of years ago at the legislature, to support a competitive program that helps finance projects that regional parks implementing agencies take on with partners in the region to really close the gap in usage in our regional park system and improve equitable usage of our regional park system. We're really excited for that, and we expect that we'll have our third year of grant program this year as well. And finally, as I've touched on a couple of times, as we are turning to 2050 regional planning, we've already completed numerous activities to prepare us for a policy conversation. And I know it will be a lot for new council members to take on because this is over the course of several years where we've discussed a number of these items, including our comp plan composite series, which really is just a broad assessment of all of the things that we saw in local comprehensive plans, including what local governments were identifying as important to them in their visions, what the trends and shared values were as part of that. Those shared values really inform the vision and values process for the 2050 plan that this council has been engaged in over the last year and a half too, in identifying what that 2050 vision and values will look like. We also completed our first go at our 2050 regional population and employment forecast, and you'll be hearing an update on those forecasts in April this year. And that really will set the stage then for how we move forward and like, what are we gonna do with all that growth and where is it gonna go? And that's gonna be the heart of our conversation over the course of this year. We also conducted a significant 5-year study that we do every 5 years in our regional parks visitor study. This is how we know who is going to our parks, why they're going there, what they would like to see in our parks, and we actually will be publishing that report real soon. But over the course of conducting that in-person study, we both learned quite a bit, but also used the results of that study to engage with our parks implementing agencies and others in the region about what does that mean and what should we do about this. So really a prelude to some of our regional parks conversations that we'll have more this year. And finally, you'll be hearing all sorts of stuff about 2050 coming forward, but this is just some of the things that we've accomplished in community development, and I will turn it over to George Gonzalez. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. And you and the others have packed in so much, and I really, really appreciate it. And of course, I appreciate everybody spending just a little bit extra time. We really tried to cut this off at 6 So, George, I'm going to ask that we actually just talk briefly about the governor's strategic plans, because I think we kind of need to think about that in our minds, and then we'll let people go, because I really try to keep this to 2 hours. We know all the time you commit to, and this is just so much information, but I really appreciate everything that's been caused. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you. Briefly, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry I have to leave because I have a group of mayors out in Loretto, and I meet with them monthly. And I'm going to miss the part that George is putting together here. I'll make sure I connect with you on this, and I've seen some of the preview. I just want to say, this is so good to get it condensed into one place. And I would love for every legislator to see what is going on. We make the news, but a lot of the times the great work that we're doing here doesn't make the news because it's just expected, or I don't want to say taken for granted, but it's part of people's daily lives, right? So I just want to say hats off to the entire team. This is fantastic, and I'm really proud of being on this group and look forward to serving with all of you, but I have to go.
I know you have to run, and
Thank
a few
you.
have already left, and if you have to leave, thank you. And George, we are going to come back and talk about some of this regional stuff, but maybe in the closing moments you could.
So just for closing, thank you very much, Chair and council members. You know, I know it's short, but over the next couple of days, we're going to send you, or you will be receiving from me, some guidance as far as the One Minnesota plan and how we're going to approach our, or your strategic plan from 2023 to 2027. So with that, you know, thank you very much for allowing us the time.
And normally, we also have comments from the chair, briefly. You can also think about if you have things that have happened in your district you want to share. This is always a good time to do it at the end of the meeting. Regional Administrator, do you have any words?
Just a welcome from the staff, and I know you're going to have a lot coming to you over the next several months, and it's going to feel like you're drinking from a fire hose, and stopping us and ask us questions. You were very respectful in the meeting today of not stopping us. But we expect you to stop us when we're presenting and ask us questions. That's what we're here for. So whether it's in a meeting or whether after a meeting, feel free to stop staff and ask questions. We're here to help you.
And with that, it's going to be a wild ride. This is so wonderful. It feels like the first day of school, and we can't do it without staff. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, George. Thank you, everybody who's presented today. Really wonderful. And we're very fortunate, and this meeting's adjourned. We'll see you very soon in a meeting.